From New York, New York, you are listening to Extra Time, driven by AT&T 5G. I'm Andrew Wiebe, and we have a special interview for you today. The president of MLS NEXT Pro is here. That's Charles Altchek. He has a long history with soccer in this country, and he's going to tell you more about the league that kicks off on this Friday, March 25th in St. Louis. St. Louis City 2 hosting Rochester, New York FC at Herman Stadium. It's going to be a sellout. You can watch on MLS NEXT Pro. Without further ado, let's hear from Charles. All right, let's learn a little bit more about MLS NEXT Pro. We're chatting with Charles Altchek, the MLS NEXT Pro president, formerly the MLS senior vice president of league growth at the league office. Charles, what's up? It's an AT&T 5G call to the field, and we are super glad to be chatting with you.
Great to be with you. Appreciate the time. Appreciate the opportunity. This is going to be fun.
So let's start with the basics about you. And we have the basics about the league, and everybody can go check those out. That's what we know. But I think some people don't know who Charles Altchek is, at least the people that are going to be watching, following, caring about this. Give us the primer, man. Who are you?
Who am I? I'm a, I don't know if I've ever been asked that question quite that way. I'm a New Yorker, but my connection to the game is through my mom. My mom's from France. She went to college here. That's how she met my dad. And I went to French school growing up here in the tri-state area. And so I only played soccer growing up. It's what we played in the schoolyard. I didn't play lacrosse or football. And I really fell in love with the sport through school, through going to school with all, French kids. Most of them didn't even speak English, basically. And then visiting family in France. And, the World Cup in '98 was a moment that I remember pretty vividly as a young person. I had posters of, Zidane and Vieira up in my room, Thierry Henry and others. And then played the game as a kid, got really serious with it in high school, and then had the opportunity to play in college, played at Harvard, had a great experience. And senior year, after going to the MLS Combine, realized that my path was going to be off the field. And I got a job, worked on Wall Street for a few years, and then figure out a way to get back into the sport. And I've been working for the league office since 2014 on many different projects, mostly around expansion, new teams, new stadiums, that kind of thing. And then had the opportunity to be part of this incredible opportunity with MLS NEXT Pro, which has been a great experience, and I'm really looking forward to the launch later this week.
So we'll talk about MLS NEXT Pro. I have to ask about '98. I read a bunch of stuff that you've done since you were announced and did the research. And I'm wondering, based on your family and your experiences, what was '98 for you? Because you're saying Thierry, Vieira, Zinedine Zidane. It was a good year for France. It was not as good for the U.S. How was it split for you during that '98 World Cup, and how did you experience that tournament?
Well, you always, let's start with, while I have a French passport, I always root for the USA. And so that was a tough one. I was a young person, so I probably didn't understand, every aspect of it. But I wasn't in France for the World Cup. I was here watching with everybody else. But I would say that I remember vividly in 2002 getting up in the middle of the night with my teammates and watching games, early in the morning, middle of the night, and being part of that excitement as a fan, and watching Landon, and McBride and Claudio and all those guys, and I think that's when I started to really fall in love with the sport in a whole different way, and so now I get to be a part of it, and I get to give back in some ways, and I'm really grateful for that opportunity.
So your mom was a soccer person, your dad was not. You told Soccer America that your dad broke his ankle the first time he played with you, first and only. I need that family story. I need a little bit more meat on that bone. Maybe that's a bad analogy to make given what happened to your dad, but that's insane. That's crazy.
Yeah. So I was probably 10 or 11 at the time. I can't remember. And I think it literally is the only time that my dad ever played with us. And my brother, who's a few years younger than I, were playing in the backyard. My dad, must have come home from work or whatever it was, and he started kicking it around with us. And I think he was roughhousing with us. And my little brother tried to trip him, and my dad jumped over his leg and landed on the ball. And his ankle snapped and that was the last time he ever played with us. But he was always supportive of what I was doing. And while he didn't have any advice for me on the field, he was always supportive of what I was doing off the field.
I can imagine why that would be the last time that you would give that a go if that was the end result. As someone who's had a lifetime of ankle problems, I feel for your dad in that sense. You mentioned after the 2007 Combine, and I heard an anecdote about you, and I want to know if it's true, that you asked some coaches on the plane back from that Combine what they thought about your future, and they said you should probably think about a different profession. Is that true?
Yeah. Look, the story is probably, the details around that story are probably for more suited for a conversation at the bar or whatever else. But I was sitting in the back of the plane. A few of the coaches were sitting in the row in front of me. They'd had a couple of drinks. I think it had been a long week for everybody. It was hot, and they'd been watching a lot of soccer. Some good, some less good. And I waited until we were about halfway through the flight, and I happened to know them because they were folks that I had known for years at that point. And I said, "What do you guys think I should do?" And they both started laughing and said, "You should get a job off the field." And I thought that was good advice, so I took it.
So now we're at, and you have a long background with soccer, whether it be with the Mets. When people hear Mets, they think, oh, baseball, but it wasn't actually baseball for you in that side. But so much of your job has been around growth strategy in the soccer sphere. Explain to me what that means and how it relates to MLS Next Pro, because we're starting, year one is year one, but year one is not going to be year 2 or 3 or 5 or 10 or 20 or wherever this league goes. So how do you think about growth strategy in your role as president of MLS Next Pro?
Yeah, so this is year one, and it's the first building block in what will be a really important part of our enterprise, of our ecosystem. MLS Next Pro is going to serve as the link between all of the great things that are happening at the academy level and MLS Next, and then all of the energy and excitement in Major League Soccer, and create that opportunity for players to now have a integrated pathway. But beyond just player development, which is one of our pillars, this is going to be an opportunity for us to continue to grow the game across the country. And a lot of the work that I've done over the last number of years has been around that and introducing soccer to new markets, to new fans, to new investors, with new stadiums, and just incredible energy around what's been happening with this sport. And as we look ahead to 2026 and the opportunity that the World Cup is going to bring, we need to put ourselves in the best position possible to capture that opportunity across the country. And now we have a way to continue to grow the sport beyond just what we're doing in Major League Soccer. And we've been having great conversations around the country. Ollie Curtis and I have been traveling over the last number of months, meeting with groups that are interested in being part of MLS Next Pro. And they all have different reasons that they want to get involved. Some are already involved in professional sports and other sports. Some have experience in professional soccer. Some have decided that soccer is their way to give back to the community, and they want to be part of something really special. But if there's a common thread that has come out of all of our different discussions, is everybody is so excited about the World Cup coming in 2026, and everybody wants to be ready to capture that opportunity. And the onus is on us to create a league that gives folks the ability to do that. And what's going to be so exciting is you're going to have 30 or so MLS-owned teams, depending on where we net out over the next number of years. And then we have a very aggressive growth strategy around independent teams over the next number of years. And whether it's 10 independent teams, 20 independent teams, that the onus is going to be on us to create, something that's attractive to those folks out there. But so far, the enthusiasm and the interest has been really energizing, and so we're looking forward to continuing those discussions around the country.
What do you think the role of independent teams is going to be in this league? Because right now it is an MLS 2, so to speak, league within Rochester. And Rochester is sort of the first to take that plunge, and of course they'll be a part of that first ever game on Friday. You can watch it at 8 p.m. Eastern. You're going to have Taylor Twellman, Steve Cangelosi, Poppy Miller, Susanna Collins on that broadcast as part of the Game of the Week package. There are going to be those every single week. You can watch games at MLSNextPro.com. What are the role that those teams can play? How can they drive the league forward? Why is that an attractive thing for MLS to go attract others into this enterprise?
Well, there's a couple of different aspects to it. One we just talked about, and it's part of this effort to continue to grow the sport across the country, which couldn't be more important to everything we're doing, across Major League Soccer, and whether it's the league office, our teams, our academies, our community partners, our sponsors, etc. And then beyond that, we know that having independent teams, from experience and from what we've seen and researched and studied and conversations we've had around the world, having independent teams competing in our league is so important from a player development perspective as well. They bring different strategies, they build their rosters differently, they're thinking about things differently than our teams are. So in some cases, they are focused on player development. In other cases, they're less focused on player development, and they're all going to come at it from a different perspective, playing in stadiums that are full of fans, energized, exciting, and create that environment that is so important to player development and everything that we're doing. And so when you put it all together, they're a critical piece of our strategy, and we're going to be spending a lot of time with Rochester. Obviously, they're our first team. We're really excited about what's happening with RNYFC. The Dworkins have been great to work with. They obviously, they have a lot of experience with the Rhinos, and then with their involvement with the Sacramento Kings over the last number of years. And then Jamie Vardy's involvement at the ownership level is critical to what they're doing, because he has, if anybody has perspective on what lower division soccer can provide as a platform for players and others, Jamie Vardy is the embodiment of that. If you think about his career and where he came from and where he is now and what he's accomplished, I couldn't think of a more perfect owner to be part of that team and part of our league.
So it's a sellout crowd reportedly for St. Louis, and St. Louis City 2 is going to play their first game, and they're broadcasting it locally, and this is sort of the beginning for them in a march to MLS next year. I think about this from a developmental perspective, and it makes perfect sense. You're linking MLS Next to MLS Next Pro to MLS, and we've already seen all the benefits that's paid for homegrown players and other players, whether it be out of the college system or otherwise, to make jumps into Major League Soccer. We're seeing young players from South America, Central America, and otherwise be signed into MLS Next Pro for this first season. I get all that. The fan side of things. In your mind, how are you best? What's the outreach to fans? What's the proposition to fans to say this is something that you really should care about?
I mean, for me, it's very straightforward. You're going to get to see the stars of today and tomorrow competing every weekend, trying to make it to the next level. And I think what you're going to see as well is you're going to, we have several of our teams that are MLS-owned teams that are having conversations quietly at this point around where might be the best place for their MLS Next Pro team to be playing long-term. And it could be that they're staying in their, local markets, whether it's playing in their MLS stadium or playing in a smaller venue, a secondary venue, many of our teams are going to test that strategy this year. Or it could be that they move their MLS Next Pro team to a secondary market, that's in their, call it their sphere of influence, and that they find the perfect partner, the perfect venue to have their MLS Next Pro competing long-term, and activating a new fan base and being able to interact with new fans and bring the game closer to fans who may be, a little farther away and not able to get to every MLS game. And so it's a combination of all of those things, and playing in smaller stadiums. Many of our teams are doing it this year. You bring the game closer to the fans, and I think that's going to be really special. And many of the players that are playing in MLS Next Pro this year, whether they're MLS Next Pro contracted players, whether they're coming up from the academies, coming down from the first teams, they're coming out of those communities, which I think is really exciting as well. I think back to I spent some time in Orlando as part of the MLS is Back tournament, and it had been some time for me since I'd been that close to the game. And when you get a little closer to the field and you can get a little closer to the players, it really is a special experience. And I'm hoping that many of our fans get to experience that this year as part of what we're doing in MLS Next Pro.
What do you think success is, both on the sporting side, and that's naturally where as fans, we often that's where we focus, but also on the business side, because this isn't just a sporting venture for MLS as well. There are business considerations as well. We're testing new technologies here. They're doing a lot of things within the league as far as innovation and DEI that are really important to what this league, as well as MLS Next Pro, look like in the future. For you, like year 1, what is success? Year 5, what is success? Year 10, how does that change over time?
So look, that's a great question. We have 4 pillars in MLS Next Pro. Player development is clearly important to everything we're doing, and it's part of the reason why we're launching this league. But beyond that, this is about our local communities. These players are coming from our local communities. We need these teams to be connected to their local communities and being a part of the fabric of the community in which they play, and from which their fans come. This, you mentioned it, you said it, this is going to be our platform for innovation. We're going to be trying new technologies, new ideas, new rules on and off the field. And this is going to be a way for us to continue to evolve our beautiful game. And there are so many different things that we have wanted to try over the years in Major League Soccer, but for different reasons, couldn't get across the line. This is now an opportunity for us to do that. But it's not just about innovation. Underpinning all of that, our 4th pillar, and in many ways our most important pillar, is a true commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And what I'm most excited about in many ways as it relates to MLS Next Pro is the opportunities it's going to create for those who want to break into the game at all levels. And it's not just players on the field, it's everything that's happening off the field on the technical side with our coaches, our technical staff, and on the business side, folks who are going to be selling tickets, selling sponsorship, interacting with fans, partners, etc. And then, beyond that, around the game, groundskeepers, and everybody who is associated with our teams. The amount of job creation that's happening around MLS Next Pro is exciting. Now, man, as I think about, I'm focused on, having a great event in St. Louis on Friday. You mentioned a lot of the excitement that's happening there. It's going to be an awesome event. Their fans are going to come out in full force. What a special experience it's going to be, bringing high quality professional soccer back to St. Louis in advance of their launch into Major League Soccer in 2023. But as I think about Friday, this weekend, the rest of 2022 and beyond, when I'm thinking a little bit longer term, when I'm, a part of this, hopefully in 2026, and the World Cup is here, MLS Next Pro has brought soccer to new markets across the country, created new fans across the country, and provided opportunities for players and staff and coaches and technical staff and everybody else to be part of our beautiful game. And then beyond that, I think in 5-year increments. So I'm focused on getting this weekend right, getting 2022 right, getting the next number of years right, leading into 2026, and then we'll take a step back and see where we are and figure out, what we need to do to keep progressing and keep pushing on all fronts.
One of my favorite things about what the league looks like right now is that so many former players are a part of staffs and getting their start as coaches in MLS Next Pro, and just giving another platform for those guys to have professional experience in environments, by the way, they're comfortable with. You think of Sporting Kansas City, for instance, and having Ike and Benny in those positions. What do you think about that opportunity for players? Because I think that's something that a lot of people have raised their hand and said, hey, we're looking to stay involved. How do we stay involved? You did it in your way. They're doing it in their way. What does this change for current MLS players or those that have gotten out of the professional game and are looking to still contribute?
It's SKC2, perfect example. And it comes full circle in some ways for me. Benny and I he may not even know this. He and I used to play against each other back in the day in Westchester, New York. I was playing for the Larchmont Tornadoes, and he was playing for Scarsdale before he moved. Either it was to California or Brazil. I think he moved to Brazil, and then he ended up going to college at UCLA. But it's a small world from that perspective. We've been doing a lot of work with Dr. Jamil Northcutt and our player engagement group here. We have a call we have a Zoom meeting with the MLS greats tomorrow just to reconnect with them and give them a preview of what to look forward to with MLS Next Pro this season. And you're seeing it already with I think it's 40% of the coaches in the class of 2022 are former MLS players, and that's not counting all the assistant coaches and everybody else that's working at the team level. But what a great platform for new opportunity and for that environment for former players to get involved at the professional level and cut their teeth and figure out what's the best path for them. It's something that we're really focused on, really committed to, and I'm looking forward to engaging with the MLS greats and with all of our former players to figure out what's the best spot for them as MLS Next Pro grows over the coming years.
Is there a number? Is there too many teams? Can we get to that point? Like, if we're talking 20 additional independent teams down the line, and fill in the year, whatever it is, 50 teams, how many conferences? Is there any sense in your mind that something is too big, or does the league regionalize, or is that just sort of why this is such a valuable thing for MLS? Because really, it is like your mind's eye. Where can this go? Let's see where we can take it, and once we get there, we can innovate and figure out where it needs to be.
I think it's a little bit of all of those things, but if you think about where we want to get to, scale allows us to be very creative around the schedule, around the competition format, around regionalizing the competition and creating efficiencies from all different perspectives, from a travel perspective, from a regional rivalry perspective. Sitting here today, the vision is to grow this league meaningfully over the next number of years. And as we grow, figure out the ways to, be really strategic around how we're building it and how we're evolving it. And what's so, exciting and daunting in some ways is that, we've got this blank canvas and we can do with it what we think is best. Working with our teams, working with our independent teams over the next number of years, working with our owners to understand, what the strategic imperatives are. But sitting here today, the idea is to grow this league meaningfully, and to be really thoughtful about how we evolve the competition. And speaking of competition, one of the aspects of it that we're really focused on, even for 2022, is layering in some international competition. So we've been having great conversations with some of our friends from different leagues around the world to figure out what's possible for 2022 and beyond. And we certainly want to try and pull something off for this year, so that we can give our players and our teams that critical international competition that we know is so important to player development and everything else that we're doing. So more to come on that front.
Who do you think that would be against? Is we talking like Liga MX second teams? Are we talking, the second team of European teams that travel here over the summer to play friendlies? Give me just a sort of an idea of what that could look like.
It could be. We're having conversations with all of the above, and we have great relationships with the folks you just mentioned, and we have relationships with every league around the world. So we're talking to all of them to figure out what makes the most sense for this season and then beyond. But I think there's a great opportunity ahead for us to create some really compelling competition that's dynamic, that is exciting, and that's really accretive to everything we're doing in MLS Next Pro.
Charles, I appreciate your time. I have one more question for you. And when you came into this league, you worked very closely and have worked very closely with Commissioner Garber. And now you're sort of this figurehead for a new league. I wonder what you took away from those years working with the commissioner and how that shapes the way you view this job, what success in this job is for you, and how you personally want to do it.
I've been really fortunate. I've been really fortunate over the last number of years to get to work with Commissioner Garber and Mark Abbott and Gary Stevenson and the whole executive team here. And there haven't been that many moments when I've been able to take a step back, but when I do, it's pretty incredible, the combined experience when you put it all together of the folks that I've gotten to work with. But if there's anything I've learned from working with the group and with Commissioner Garber and for Commissioner Garber is you always have to think multiple steps ahead. And every decision you make, you have to be mindful of the impact that it has today and what it sets you up for in the future. So I have a tremendous sense of responsibility, a tremendous sense of gratitude for the opportunity that I've been given. And this is an opportunity for me to give back to this sport that has given me so much. And I'm really looking forward to this weekend and to the adventure ahead.
St. Louis City, too, hosting Rochester, New York FC at Herman Stadium on Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern. You can watch all the games will be broadcast on MLSNextPro.com, so tune in for those. We'll see how year one goes, right? It's just year one. There's a lot of years ahead. Charles Altchek, the president of MLS Next Pro. We appreciate your time, Charles. Good luck, man.
Thanks, Andrew. I really appreciate it. See you soon.
Congratulations, you made it through more than an hour of Extra Time. That means you love the show, and if you love the show, you probably want more episodes. Click right here for more episodes of Extra Time, and here to subscribe to the MLS YouTube channel. Thanks for following along.